Hey, how are you? So in this video, I want to share with you a really helpful technique to help you reduce the intensity of your symptoms if you are someone who is battling right now with a chronic illness or pain or symptoms that are chronic. The exercise itself is a version of a technique called quick coherence. If you've followed any of the work of the Heart Math Institute, or you've heard of people like Joe Dispenza and Greg Braden and all these sorts of people, there is so much emphasis now placed on regulating the nervous system. Okay, and in my own recovery from post-concussion syndrome, heart coherence was the number one method, if you like, or strategy or technique and practice that I implemented every single day that got me back to feeling better. Okay, so this is not about healing yourself instantly like this, because I'm sure you've heard loads of different promises before and you're probably at the point where you just think, look, I just want to feel a little bit better in a short space of time. So I'm going to take you through what it is, how it works, and then we're going to do it together, okay? So you can practice this. If you don't get this the first time, do not worry, okay? I'm going to make more videos about this. You can look at more of my content where I talk about the sort of emotional aspect and how it takes time to sort of get this right, but you should be able to feel a little bit of a difference, okay? I promise you this is such an important thing to do, because when you perform heart coherence, when you start to regulate your nervous system, your autonomic nervous system is almost like the foundation and the baseline of who you are. Okay, so if that is out of whack, if you've been through some traumatic situations, if your body's been under stress, if you've got these symptoms, your autonomic nervous system is the sort of core part of your physiology of your body. So if that's out of whack, it doesn't really necessarily matter in terms of what you try and do on the surface level, and you might have found this, things don't really change. It always feels like it's like a band-aid approach, okay? So we want to get to the root cause of the problem, which is the chronic stress, the inflammation. If we can get your nervous system to feel safe and get you to feel safe, we can put an end to those symptoms, begin to diminish them, okay? Just reduce their intensity, and we keep doing it and doing it and doing it, and we create a new baseline. We lower the inflammation and we begin to allow your body to effectively breathe, right? To recharge and recover. So this isn't one of those mad promises where I'm saying you're going to heal overnight, but it's very effective if you do this the right way. What we're doing here, heart coherence. When you're in a state of fight or flight, your heart rhythm looks like this, okay? And it's in this state of, it's called incoherence, the actual heart rhythm. But let's say you're super stressed. Let's say you see something that really stresses you out. And it could be a perceptive fear, like a bill, for example, that you see out of nowhere. You see a dangerous collision in front of you, or you feel yourself slip on the ice. So all these different circumstances create this responsiveness, this fight or flight response. And when we're in our fight or flight response, constantly we create stress, and we place stress on the body. And our body begins to produce inflammation because it's full of adrenaline, it's full of cortisol. And this becomes, if we do this habitually, it becomes subconscious, right? Hope you're sticking with me on this. So that's what our heart rhythm looks like. It looks like this. And it's in this sort of jagged format, and it's incoherent. The problem is as well is that this then bleeds into our lives, into how we think mentally and how we feel emotionally. So if we're in a constant state of our autonomic nervous system always being in this fight or flight mode, we're very limited in the emotions we can actually feel, right? We get stuck in feeling guilt and shame and anger and impatience and feeling irritable and frustrated, right? And grief. We get stuck in these sort of, people call them negative emotions, but they're almost, I like the term of almost life-sucking emotions. They take away your love for life, your joy, your ability to smile, to feel energy, to have an elevated mood, right? They take you away from being who you are at your true core, your essence. So all we're doing with this exercise I'm going to show you, which is the sort of starter, the precursor, is we're just going to shift your heart's rhythm back into balance. So when you do this, when you move your heart's rhythm from that irritable, incoherent state, and you shift it into what's called a sine wave, this nice smooth wave that you'll see here now, this is where things start to change, okay? Because when your heart rhythm smooths out and it begins to beat in this nice, smooth rhythm, rather than all over the place, it's coherent, right? It's like a constant, it's like a pebble being dropped into a pond, and there's that constant, consistent, nice waveform to it. Now, the reason this is really helpful in terms of reducing intensity and symptoms, intensity of symptoms rather, is that when your heart rhythm shifts and it's nice and smooth, your heart sends a message to your brain. And this message is, we're safe. Okay, so your heart sends this message to your brain to say, we're safe. So the amygdala in your brain that manages all the stress responses begins to diminish, begins to dissolve and diffuse and kind of turn into this like lesser intense version of itself. So the amygdala calms down, then the chemistry in your brain starts to change, right? Rather than survival-based chemistry where your brain is telling your body to produce adrenaline and cortisol and epinephrine, you're now in the mix of producing more elevated emotions and chemistry such as oxytocin, DHEA, serotonin, dopamine. Okay, so there's a whole host of things here which I will talk about in further videos, but this is what we're doing, because remember the sort of the path of how this loop we get stuck in when it comes to being stuck in symptoms happens. We had probably some traumatic experience, or we've had chronic stress throughout our lives. We've been stuck in this fight or flight mode. We've been full of adrenaline and cortisol and epinephrine. And that's like driving your car around every single day with your foot fully down on the gas pedal, right? You don't let the car cool down. You don't put fuel in it. If you were to do that to your car, the car would just fall apart and completely, it would implode, right? And our bodies are the same. They need time to cool off, like the car. They need time to refuel, to recharge the battery, all these sorts of things. So this is super important, okay? This is what we're going to do. So let's have a go at this technique. I'm going to explain it first of all, and then I want you to try it with me, okay? And if you don't get it, or if it's difficult to do, if you've been symptomatic for a long time, that's normal, okay? You will get better at this, and what it will give you is a sense of control. Okay, because when you're symptomatic, when your pain kicks in, or your symptoms, like if it's dizziness, vertigo, whatever it is, headaches, for example, if you now have a chance where you can actually consciously step in and override that nervous system, which is stuck in fight or flight, and shift it back consciously into a state of balance. And as I said, if it's been going on for a while, you're going to have to keep doing this. But just giving yourself this break will show you that you can then you have the actual ability to step in and change things, right? Rather than feeling like you are just the victim of your symptoms and your body starts to own you rather than you, your essence, being able to actually take control and live your life. Okay, so here's a technique. Let me explain it first of all, and then we're going to give it a go together. The first step is closing your eyes. Super simple. The reason being is that when we close our eyes, we are telling our body that we feel safe. Okay, if we're under threat, we cannot close our eyes. We are super vigilant. We feel like we've got to look around, got to take everything in. If I close my eyes consciously, I'm telling my body, look, we're safe. If I can close my eyes, we're safe. The second step that I want you to do is I want you to place your attention on your heart. Now, this sounds like a bit of a metaphysical, esoteric term. It's super easy, right? You can either just consciously place your attention here, so sense where the center of your chest is, your heart. If that's difficult, and what I find really helpful when I do this is I can either place my hand over the center of my chest, right, on my sternum, my breastbone, or I could place two fingers here, or I could place this sort of prayer mudra here, where I've got the sort of the back of my thumbs up against the center of my chest. Now, whatever you do, the reason you're doing it is just to place your attention here so you can sense it. If you put a body part here, your awareness goes straight to where you're touching, okay? And what this will do, your heart has an electromagnetic field. It's a very sensitive organ, right? It's the part of us that actually feels. And very often when we're in this fight or flight mode, we get very up in our heads, right? And our mind cannot relax. We are constantly bombarded with thoughts, with things that happen in the past and worries about things that are going to happen in the future. We can't be present. So this is going to bring you into the center of you. Right? When we say I, where do we point to? I think this, I believe this. Your seat of your soul is in your heart. So you're just going to place your attention there. You've closed your eyes. You're going to place your attention in the center of your chest. And all I want you to do is just to slow your breathing down and breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, and just breathe a little slower and a little deeper than normal in a way that feels really comfortable for you. Okay? We're going to start with that. Then what we're going to do, the final step, and I'm not going to add the emotional aspect here now because it's another step and people can find that a little bit tricky, but you will feel good after this just from this sort of basic quick coherence technique here, is I want you to just try and ensure that the out breath is a little bit longer than the in breath. And the reason for that is that the out breath is related to the parasympathetic response, which is the opposite of the fight or flight response. When we inhale, we activate the fight or flight response. When we exhale, we activate the rest and digest response. So if we can make that out breath a little bit longer, we're going to put more dominance into that system, right? Because we're already in this fight or flight mode. And people who are in fight or flight typically find it difficult to exhale longer because everything is about taking more oxygen in order to run, right? To fight, to run away. So there's this constantly, people are tight up in the chest and their necks are super stiff and their backs are stiff and they feel very vigilant and they're trying to take more air in, okay? But if we can just extend that exhale a little bit, that's going to really help put us into that rest and digest mode. Bring that balance, slow down the production of adrenaline and cortisol and reduce the inflammation. So let's give it a go together, okay? If you don't get this first of all, you can obviously come back and try this again, but this is so powerful in the initial stages to give you back control and to start reducing the intensity of your pain or your symptoms when it comes to chronic illness and chronic pain, okay, or a kind of chronic condition. So let's give it a go. We're going to close our eyes. You can pause this as many times as where you're at right now to get this right, but we're going to close our eyes. Just going to relax the shoulders a little bit if we can. Just relax our bodies. Just let whatever we can relax. And then what we're going to do is we're going to place our attention in the center of our chest. Okay? So eyes are closed. And just keep your focus here, right here. Okay? And I want you to keep your focus here as you're breathing as well. So keep your focus here and just breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth whilst keeping your focus in this area of your chest. Okay, and keep that going for me. And I want you to just make that exhale just a little bit longer than the inhale. Okay, not force, just a little bit longer. Keep your attention on your heart and just keep that nice breathing rhythm going. Okay, and that's it. So you can repeat this process, but this is just the initial stages. This is how I train people because it can be a little bit of a, rather than diving in and trying to do a full-blown meditation and feeling joy and wholeness and health, for a lot of people that's very difficult when it comes to healing at the deepest level. So you can go back and practice this as many times as you like. But what you've done there is you've just shifted your nervous system out of that fight or flight state, which is intensifying symptoms, right? Fight or flight releases adrenaline and cortisol and epinephrine, generates more inflammation. When inflammation is high, we feel pain more, right? Our body is more sensitive, it's more symptomatic. So we are really doing ourselves a favor by getting out of this mode and moving ourselves back into healing mode. If you want to learn how to do this properly, check out the link below to my coaching community. I will train you to perform heart coherence properly, to be able to maintain it, to use it through your day, to reduce the intensity of your symptoms, and over time, begin moving your body back into its natural state of balance. That'll be linked below. Otherwise, thank you so much for your time, and I really hope this was helpful. Let me know as well below in the comments, how did it go? Have you got any questions around the technique? And I will see you there. Take care.